Welcome back to Responsibly Unhinged. It's your host, Kylie Kaiser.
And Quinn Collins.
We are back with another very special guest today. We've been trying to get her on for a while. So excited to have Rachel Wolfson in the house.
Thank you guys for having me, ladies.
What is up? How are you?
I'm good. Yeah, I'm just, vibing.
Vibing?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. Well, Rachel, you have done a lot of really cool shit. So we've had you excited to be on here. Very funny, doing awesome in the stand-up scene here in Austin.
Thank you.
You've done some acting. You've been in Jackass.
Yeah.
What is like one of the wildest moments of your career so far? Is there something that like really stands out to you, or like something that like when you like want to summate like who Rachel is, like what is like your elevator pitch, I guess?
I started stand-up in 2016 after a breakup, as one would. And I, like 3 years after I started stand-up, I got asked to come audition for Jackass. And when I got into stand-up, I just like fell in love with it. And that was like my end goal, was like no matter what, stand-up. Like I never really wanted to like act or anything.
Mm-hmm.
Like I took improv as a kid and whatever, but I just, I like the challenge of like being yourself on stage. And so, yeah, when I got asked to audition for Jackass and like I booked the movie, I was like, oh, like that's like, you're like, I don't even know how many of those Hollywood stories still exist anymore, where you like move to LA and like you get discovered.
Yeah.
It's so rare, you know? So yeah, that was one of the highlights of my career. And also just like when I started stand up, pretty quickly I started getting taken on the road, and I had like comedy mentor, like Felipe Esparza. I just opened for him last night at the Moody Theater.
Mm-hmm.
He was one of the first comedians to start taking me on the road. He put me on his podcast. Like this was like 2 years into stand up.
Yeah.
So it's been really cool.
Yeah.
You know, it's ups and downs, but there's been a lot of ups.
What scene did you start in?
LA.
Okay. Oh,
I didn't realize you were doing stand-up before Jackass too.
Oh yeah, no.
So that was like kind of led you into that comedic
Well, that makes sense
area.
because I was only 3 years in. No one should like know about me as a stand-up, you know? But yeah, that was like something that I just, because, you know, I went to college, I have like a master's degree in marketing,
It's like,
and which is like a lot of comedy is marketing yourself. And I just was never fulfilled with like the corporate lifestyle. And I always felt like I was getting in trouble or fired. Like I just didn't really fit into that environment. And I didn't like my job before I started stand up. I was going through a breakup and I was like, I have nothing to lose. And also I was always told I was funny even as a kid. And so for me, when you're young, especially as a woman, when you're told you're funny, you don't know what to make of it, because like when you're young, or at least in like middle school and high school, definitely in high school, you want to be like pretty.
Yeah. Yes.
You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And like you don't realize at the time that's so not like, at the end of the day, you want to be seen as funny and have a good personality. So I always kind of like took it as like a negative, like, oh, I'm funny, I'm weird.
Yeah.
You know, I'm not like I'm not liked or whatever. People just like think I'm funny.
Yeah.
But then as I got older, I realized, oh, that's like one of the best things you can be is funny.
Yeah.
That's how I felt when I worked at Hooters.
LOL.
Like, when I worked there, it was they're
Funniest
like,
girl at Hooters.
we're gonna have you follow Quinn personality wise. She has what we want when it comes
You're
to
the
talking
Hooters
about customers.
personality hire.
Personality hire at Hooters is diabolical.
That should be your like. That should be like your like on your dating profiles.
Personality
and like,
hire.
But
at
it
Hooters.
is one of those things that it was like there was one girl, she was like in the calendar. She was gorgeous. She was very sweet. But I was making more money than her because I was talking to those boys like dogs,
Oh
dude.
yeah, giving them no doe eyes.
I talked to Hooters. I was talking to them like absolute dogs.
I bet they love that.
They love it.
I was gonna say.
Because you're just shooting shit with them. It's like just roast battle every day at work.
Yeah.
And they don't reciprocate.
Yeah.
You just get to call old men fat.
Yeah.
That's so funny that you got like had that impression, because don't you have that joke about your like review you got at Hooters?
Oh
or something
yeah.
too?
It was like I got a review, and the joke I like make it worse.
Right.
It was like they said that in the actual review was like, we love seeing like a girl next door type at Hooters. Very sweet, very great service, very nice review. But in my head, I was like, oh, so glad Hooters has started hiring realistic looking girls.
Yeah.
Thank God for that.
Thank God. That's
3
so
years
funny.
though.
Yeah. Hey,
Love that.
you still have the outfit,
I do. Both colors.
as you should.
The other cool thing about Hooters, working there in college, I don't know if they still do it, but like if you get good grades, they pay you. So it's like if you
shit.
submit your grades, like I think every semester I worked at Hooters, I got $1,000 just for having good grades.
What?
That's awesome.
Wow.
Hooters is supporting boobs and brains. Who knew?
Yeah.
Yeah, that's great.
But that's actually, I feel like they should advertise that. Well, it's probably bad for their brand. They're like, nah.
No, I think actually that would probably be like
It's great for their
Yeah.
employment.
Yeah, they're trying to keep the fuggos out, I think.
Yeah.
Smart girls, not always, Hooters material.
Wow, that's like wow, that's such a fun fact.
That is. Yeah.
You
I
know?
had no idea.
I wonder if they still do it, but
Yeah.
it was pretty dope.
All right, Hooters. Shout out. That's pretty cool.
Well, they're bankrupt now. So.
Well, all right.
That's probably because all the smart girls started like applying for jobs
they didn't
there.
expect so many smart girls.
Yeah.
To have tits too. That's crazy.
Yeah. God.
Well, actually, you're an example of what you've talked about, where it's like you don't. They make bras to where you don't really have to be packing to work at Hooters. I know a lot of little
Yeah,
titty
the
bitches that
bombshell
work
bra?
at Hooters. Oh yeah, yeah.
Oh, is that like a padded bra?
Oh yeah, triple padded. And here's another crazy thing. When I tell you, like I don't even know. Like the bombshell bra is honestly like
It's crazy. I had it in high
It's
school.
crazy how thick it is.
Yeah.
And there was one night when I got off work at Hooters in Johnson City. And I was going to Knoxville to see my boyfriend's place because we were leaving. We were going to Ireland to see my parents the next day. Crazy turn of events, but my car started smoking. It was like the coolant was low, so I popped the hood and I am, not bright, but I tapped the thing, like the coolant thing, which you're not supposed to do. Obviously, I know that now, but it pops off, and like luckily it didn't explode too much because there wasn't enough coolant, and it hits me in the chest, like the chest and the like stomach area, and it did burn my stomach and my hand, but like the majority of it got on my chest. But because I was wearing the bombshell bra, it didn't hurt me at all. But it ruined the bra, and I emailed Victoria's Secret, and they sent me 2 new bras.
Wow, you're Hooter smart.
Yeah.
I know.
I love that. Yeah, I'm not surprised they're like going bankrupt because like our generation eats ass.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
They're over the
They should
boobs.
rebrand.
Which I
True.
hate that, I think. I don't know. Sometimes when dudes like, you'll be on it, because like immediately when guys are hypersexual to me, hate.
yeah,
Yeah.
red flag.
Yeah.
Hate it.
Especially you're like, you don't even know my last name yet.
Get
Like,
your lusty ass out of my face.
Yeah.
And but yeah, like dudes will be like, they'll be like, yeah, you ass, by the way. And I'm like, yeah, I can tell.
Your breath is terrible.
Hate that. In Austin, a lot of guys are way too sexual, way too quick though. And I'm like,
Yeah.
okay, well,
I do see that.
text your mom,
Text your mom.
call your mom.
I'm curious. This is like the last question in this category I have, because I feel like you probably have to talk about this on stuff all the time. But it's like, what do you feel like? So you like did the audition for Jackass, got the part, obviously. Going through like that experience, obviously it's a very like comedic series. Of
Yeah.
things. Do you feel like that changed since you were doing stand up first? I'm curious. Like, did that change like your approach to comedy at all, or like how you handle things in life? Like that experience, do you feel like that impacted like the way you went about your comedic sense or anything like that, or it was just kind of like something that was very separate for you?
I mean, I guess like it made me realize like I'm a lot tougher than I realized because I can handle so much physical pain. And I think that comes from being able to handle so much emotional pain.
Yeah.
And a lot of like stand up is like painful. It's so much rejection. And just like, to me, it's like I feel like bombing almost at that time hurts worse than getting bit in the lip by a scorpion.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Because at least like when I'm doing that, I'm getting paid and whatever. But like now that I'm almost like 9 years in, I'm like, oh, bombing like feels like nothing. I've been through so much more painful things. Like I built up this callus, I guess. And it's also just like a reminder, like women, we can handle so much pain.
Yeah.
Like physical and emotional, because like, especially, we're taught, from my generation growing up, like having emotions is unacceptable because if you show any emotion, you're crazy automatically, where it's like, oh, like it's actually very human to have emotions. And like one of the like strongest things you can do is being able to regulate your emotions.
Yeah.
Because like if you just suppress them, then it's going to come out at one point like a volcano.
Yep.
Versus like learning how to like manage that, whatever emotion that you're going through. And especially like stand up really challenges that. All different types of emotion, anger, sadness, happiness. Like it's literally a roller coaster sometimes.
Yeah.
So like for me, I'll be going through like, we were going to talk about my borderline, but like it's, I've been doing stand up where I wasn't like on meds. And so I would be dealing with these like borderline episodes. Right before I would have to go on stage, I would be crying in my car, crying, like wiping away tears. And as soon as I step on stage and I get that first laugh, it like brings me to the present, and there's some kind of release and a validation that happens where it's like, oh, like, you know, it's crazy what stand-up how it can affect you, and negative or positive, you know?
That's awesome. That was actually literally one of the questions I wrote down was going to be when once we segued into talking about like the mental health stuff, if you felt like stand-up has been therapeutic or like an aid.
Oh, yeah.
That. So yeah, that's awesome.
Yeah. I mean, you know, it's obviously been challenging because like one of the core like things that people with borderline deal with is like extreme rejection and abandonment issues. Like we take it really, really hard because borderline, obviously, a lot of it like stems from environmental childhood trauma, of like, you know, neglect, abandonment, all those things, and not being taught emotional regulation. So stand up has really, you know, my mental health journey has like coincided with my stand-up journey, and the longer I'm in stand-up, the better like my mental health has kind of gotten, because I've had to be forced to deal with these feelings of rejection and abandonment and emotional dysregulation that comes from that.
Yeah, I love that. I relate to that a lot. I was diagnosed with CPTSD, and they have a lot of overlap.
Yes.
Like, there's a lot of misdiagnosed with that, with like borderline and stuff. And so I really, that's like, for me too, is what I've always said. I'm like, whenever everything else is like trash, it's like stand up is that thing that's like, even when it feels bad, it still like gives you that like sense of purpose. And like, it's so interesting as somebody who like, there's just so many like healthy layers to this fucked up, unhealthy kind of thing that we're doing. And it's so interesting to me because it's like, for me, especially when you've grown up or had a lot of those environmental things, it's like you said, rejection or like, needing validation, all those things. It's like you would think doing this would make that worse, but it almost makes it to where you can be more like about it. It's like, you know, it still hurts to like get your feelings hurt by people and stuff. But you're like, a whole crowd of people hated me. Like, it doesn't matter what this one guy thinks. Like, you know what I mean? It's kind of like builds a tough skin.
Yeah, it's, you know, again, it's all about like how you view it as well, because, you know, like there's also that saying like rejection is protection, or you know, I also just think that it's so good for you to put into practice. Like, you know, there's that skill, at least with like borderline, I do a type of therapy called DBT therapy, which is, it's a talk-based therapy, and it teaches you skills how to emotionally regulate, you know, what's going on. And one of those things is like, it's like exposure therapy almost. Like if you're afraid of abandonment or rejection, you have to like go through that to like kind of like experience it, to like conquer that fear of being exposed to that, you know, feeling.
Yeah.
So I think it's been really helpful for me, and at times it's been extremely challenging and triggering, but I think that's only, you know, even if you don't have something like mental health, it's going to trigger those emotions regardless, you know?
For sure.
When I bomb, I assume everyone's jealous of me.
LOL. See, that's what I'm saying. Like you have to, you know, just find a way to like present it to yourself, if that makes sense.
I don't know if I've said this on here. I know I've told you this story. This was before I was even doing stand-up. You just reminded me of that. I was in Thailand, and I went to like a comedy club there, and they had a bunch of like, it was
Comedy's
a lot of
huge in Thailand.
Yeah, and there was like traveling people, so like almost none of the comics were Thai. Like it was just like whoever's coming through and stuff. It was like a lineup just like here. It was really cool because all the people in there were a mix of like Thai people and like tourists too. So
expats, I'm sure.
Yeah, or travelers, things like that. And we just went to watch, and I remember there was this guy that got done, and like there was these people sitting in the front row, this like group of 4 guys, and they sat there just looking like they were having the worst fucking time, like did not laugh. And they get off stage, and I watched that I was go to one of the comics, and he was like, "You were so funny. I loved your set." And the guy literally was like, "You didn't laugh one time."
Yeah.
And he was like, "We're German. We laugh on the inside."
100%.
So I always tell myself when I'm bottom, like, they were all German.
Oh, I love that.
Like, everybody here was probably German.
That's so funny.
That's why I like to run jokes past Marcus Olin.
Yeah.
He's just like, yeah, it's good.
If you get
and like he'll be like, or if it's not funny, he'll be like, I don't get it.
Yeah.
Oh my God, I love Marcus.
Yeah.
Like, because Marcus is one of my favorite people And like, you know, it's definitely funny because Marcus sometimes will like text me and be like, I like that tag. I like that joke. And I was like, oh, then it's for sure funny if it cracks Marcus. You know what I mean?
So girly pop. Like I vent to him about like
he like has this exterior that I feel like is so like intimidating and like and every time
he's a married
so
man.
Sweet. Yeah, he's so sweet.
You know what I mean?
I'll like talk to him about like whatever like boy drama or whatever, and he just like is so quick to be like, okay, well, like then don't be a dumbass. Like don't talk to him.
Yeah,
like, so true, bestie.
It is
I actually
like
did
the
not
way
even think about
he
that.
sits. You're right, when he watches comedy all the time, it does like feel like it's like he hates all of it. I did a set at Sunset one time that he was hosting, and I remember he like came out and he was like, "That was a good set," and I was like, "Oh, thank you." Like after that, and he was like, "No, that was genuinely funny," and I was like.
Yeah, he doesn't.
Like, but he like delivered it like I was like it sounded like the mean comment. Yeah, like he was like it was very funny.
He doesn't say things just some people when you get off stage and some people just are like good set and it's like don't tell me that unless it was actually good set. You know. I literally remember I went out to Justine and I was like, I know you don't know this guy very well, but I was like, because he's hosted quite a bit at Sunset since you guys all host there. Whenever I was doing a lot of shows there, and I was like, no, he's never said that before. So I was like, he meant it. I know he meant it. It was so sweet. I want to keep talking about some of the deep stuff, but we like to do a little bit of a warm up into that so we can segue over. Let's do it.
Have you heard of this game? It's called Selly Chats.
No.
So it's a conversation card game. Can I tell a little bit about it? Yeah.
Yeah. So it's like, I don't know, kind of like you get to ask questions beyond like, what's your favorite color? And like, just really cool questions that you might not also know about your friends.
Yeah.
That you're like, oh, whoa, I've like known this person so long. What? And they're really good at like, and they have a few packs too. I want to get the Miami.
Is there
pack.
one that's like for men?
Yeah, they have like a dating pack.
They have a dating one.
Yeah, these are definitely a little more girly.
They
pop.
have
like,
a Miami pack.
Yeah.
The what?
Miami.
They have a Miami pack.
I love that.
Which I assume is like targeted like bachelorette type stuff. Is that what we think it is?
Miami is like, how do you like your Molly?
Yeah.
Where did you get your BBL?
Yeah, exactly.
I know. I am curious.
What age range is appropriate to
your number one scam choice?
Yeah. We should use our own discount code to get it. And if you guys want to check out the Miami pack, you can also do that. If you use Unhinged on letsselly.com, you can pick up your own pack for 20% off.
Do you want a sugar daddy or a glucose grandpa?
Yeah. Whichever one won't
Glucose
touch
grandpa is awesome. I love that. But yeah, I just feel like with comics, it's not as weird with this because I feel like all of us are just like clearly very open people. But you have like some friends that they're just like not willing to just talk about anything. So it's a fun game if you just have those friends that you need to like loosen things up with.
I actually don't have any friends like that. In fact, I want more friends that just like
that
shut
don't
the fuck
share
up.
much.
Yeah.
I personally don't hang out with people like that because they would hate me.
I think my friends that are like that are like my friends I've known since like I was like 7 that are like family friends.
Yeah.
And I'm like, I know nothing about them.
Yeah.
But we just are friends.
Yeah. All my friends overshare.
Yeah.
You know? In a good way. I mean, to me. But like,
I'm an oversharer, so I feel like we probably just like attract.
That's comedians though. We overshare.
Yeah.
You know?
I love the meme that's about that like this where it's like it says something about it's like with my friends. I'm like, I know like every deep trauma about them, but I could not tell you what they do for work.
Yeah.
Like that's like I don't know like the basic things about them, honestly. It's like, what's your mom's name? But I'm like, oh, I know exactly like where your uncle touched you.
We also like yeah, exactly. Like we live in an oversharing culture, like because of social media. Like there's so much I know about people that like we shouldn't know because of Facebook. Like, you know, people's inner workings of their like relationship, divorces. Like
well, I love when I'm friends with girls and they do it.
Yeah.
But when I'm hanging out with a guy and he just immediately like overshares or trauma dumps, I'm like, say less.
Quinn hates when men post Instagram stories. So
I don't like it. Too much when men tweet too much. When there's like certain things, I'm like, that is a girl thing.
Yeah.
Girly pops have 1 million bars in their story, and I'm like, slay queen. If I
Yeah.
have more than 2, I'm like,
Yeah.
gay.
I saw like I saw like a meme. It's like with all those bars. It's like if she has like run.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
Yeah.
I think
they should all
one
run
time
from me.
I was like hanging out with this guy and like we'd been hanging out for a little bit and like he was like trying to gauge if we should get food and he said, I'm so hungies. And
Ick.
that's horrible to say to me.
You're a grown man.
I'd rather a man look at me and say, I don't know, I just think you're just kind of fucking fat and weird looking. I'm going to go. Than a man look at me and say, I'm hungies. Ew. No.
Yeah. Are you 5? Blech. Gross. Cool. Yeah, let's pick one.
We all pick one?
Nope, just you.
Oh. I have to pick from the
You're
top?
the victim.
Can I pick from the middle?
I put some good ones at the top, but
okay.
it's okay if you want to go in the middle.
Okay. Oh gosh. Let's see. If you could write a book about your life, what would the title be and why? probably over the borderline. You know?
I like that.
Yeah. Yeah, I don't know. Just like, why? Because that's what, I don't know. That's just what it would be.
You said it would be like centric around that. Yeah.
Maybe. Yeah.
You had that so quick. Have you thought about this before?
Probably.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Over the borderline.
Yeah.
That could have been a good backup podcast.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I like that.
Over
Nice.
the borderline. I think that might be my friend's borderline. She has a borderline podcast now that I'm like,
Give her the plug.
but I don't know if that's what it is. Let's see. Hers is.
It's an ABBA song too, no?
Is it?
No, that's like a Madonna song.
Yes.
There you go.
Borderline. Back from the Borderline. That's my friend's podcast. That's a really good
Nice.
page for
Oh
yeah. Borderline Baddie.
Ooh.
Yeah.
I like that.
Ooh, yeah.
I like
Yeah.
that. Borderline Baddie.
Mhm.
I like that.
Beautiful Princess Disorder.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I've heard you say that.
Yeah.
Yeah, I like that.
Mhm.
Yeah. And also, you're welcome to pick from in the pack. There's just some of these that make you give us compliments, so we don't like to make you have to do that. We love
What
it,
is the
but-
best compliment you've ever received?
Oh, there you go.
I like when, like, you know, on the internet, they'll be like, you're like funny for a girl, you know?
Yep.
But like, they'll be like, but no, you're like actually funny, like not even for a girl. Honestly, I'd rather be funny than like called hot, if that makes sense.
Yeah.
So like anytime someone says that I'm funny, like that is to me, like there's nothing they could say that would
Yeah.
top that, I guess.
Yeah.
So yeah, I like being told that,
I agree.
basically.
Yeah. I like that. We always talk about too, especially because it feels like we just went on a whole bit about the whole like you're funny for a girl thing.
Oh,
But I'm
yeah.
like we're like it is hard because it's nice once you get to that point where you realize for yourself you like to be funny more because we're always like men hate funny women generally.
Yeah.
So it's like when a man is like likes that you're funny, it's so
I
nice.
want to say insecure men
Yes,
because I feel like confident men
I
do
agree.
like women that are funny.
I agree.
Yeah.
Well, because insecure men it's like they need to be the funniest. They need to.
Yeah.
Right. And I feel like insecure men kind of attract insecure women,
Yeah.
if that makes sense. But yeah, I mean, I like when either it doesn't matter, a guy or girl, whenever they say I'm funny. Also, because I have such a male audience that like I do want to relate to women more or like have more of a bigger female audience because they are consumers.
Yes.
You know,
we talk about this all the time.
they spend the money.
Yeah.
And then like with the male audience that I have, it's like they have to convince their girlfriends and their wives to come with them, which is probably like, why are you going to see that? Like if that were my boyfriend, like, oh, you think she's funny?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Why do you think she's funny? You know?
Yeah, I agree. We harp on this all the time. I'm like, there's so many, like, I feel like male comedians have to understand, like, with marketing and shows and everything here. I'm like, women buy, especially advanced sales. I'm like, it's women that are buying that.
Yeah. I saw Tank Sinatra, this big memer that I've known for a while because I used to be a memer. He has a murder podcast with this girl. I forget her name, but she's very funny as well. They had a live podcast on a Monday night competing with not competing, but the same time as Kill Tony. Sold out, all women.
All women.
Women love murder.
We love
They
murder.
like men who can commit.
Yep.
And I was just like, oh, that's so impressive. And it just proves the point of like women will go they like
Yeah.
a product. They will travel for that product. They will be lifelong supporters of it. So it's like, yeah, I really love, that's my goal is to have more of a female
Yeah.
Even
audience.
when she opened for Shannon,
Yeah.
I went to the one at Cap City, sold out all
That's
of them.
what I mean.
Yeah.
It's like, I was talking about that. I'm like, it's just, I did like my first feature run and it's her debut stand-up tour, but she has a huge like podcast following. So she was like, but I'm like the amount of like just girls that came out, like they were just fans of her, and women just like latch on to that like parasocial thing too. And like women are more like, if they relate to something you say, like they're your fan immediately.
Yeah.
Like I literally I did a show at East Austin last night, and there's this girl that sat in the front row. It was the date night comedy show, and so it's all couples, and I always forget that like sometimes couples, like the girls are a little more awkward to laugh to me because like they laugh when they relate, and then when I'm talking about like their boyfriends being pieces of shit, they're like, ah. And so like single girls tend to like me more.
Yeah.
And there was like the one single girl in the front row that was just like loving it. I could tell, and I get off stage and I like immediately have a new Instagram follower, and I click it and I realize it's her. And then like I woke up today and I have a DM, and she was just like, "You were so funny. Like I really understood everything you said. And also like, where did you get your eyeshadow?" Like I'm just
love
like,
that.
that's like how girl fans are gonna be.
Yeah.
Like the men will be like, "That's funny," and they're never gonna think about it again. Like they're not gonna go find you on Instagram unless you like really like stood out. And it's like I'll get done with almost any show and have at least like 3 girly pop. Like we did that show at Show Pony the other day, and there was like that girl that just stood and talked to us for like an hour and just like wanted to know everything about it, and like and men are just gonna be like, sick.
I think stand up is interesting for me because like I don't know if it's like a rare whatever, but I've always had an easier time with girls.
Yeah.
Like being friends with girls, being around girls. But I think a lot of it has to do with the fact that I'm never very interested in boys. Like completely, I'll go through like, but I've never like. That's never been a point of drama when it came to like my female friendships, because I think like all of their boyfriends look like, you know, they made a deal with the devil
That's
to be
never been
here,
true for me.
and like they escaped a lab, like Stranger Things or something. But anyway, I just like I've always had a pretty easy time with female friendships, and so I think with stand up too, when like girls come up to you and they're like, "I didn't even want to go," but it's like,
Yeah.
I liked this part or like this part. It is a nice, refreshing feeling because I've always liked stand-up comedy.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Me too.
But it's like, so it's like for me, like a lot of things, like, oh, it's like what my boyfriend wants to do. Being able to tap into like girls too, being like, oh, I like stand-up. I just don't want to sit through a bunch of dudes.
Yeah, there's a lot of girls
about,
that think they don't like it.
Well, I think, well, for me, I was a tomboy when I was a kid, and like I played sports. I always had guy friends, and I obviously I can relate to women, but I also can relate to men. I mean, I've always felt like I was one of the guys. Like even with like Jackass, I was like the first girl that they had as an official cast member. I've just, it's been very easy for me to like get along with guys. And so I like, and that's why I do, I have female friendships, and I'm grateful for the ones that I have, but like I don't relate to like the girly stuff. I mean, even as a kid, I hated the color pink. Sorry, don't judge me.
I'm a black girl.
I like I just it triggers me.
Yeah,
you know what I
yeah,
mean?
yeah.
And but like even as I get older, I'm like I can do like almost like a lavender,
Yeah,
I compromise. But yeah, I think I was just more interested in like guy things, I guess. I mean, gender is a social construction. So
Right.
like, what is a guy thing even?
Yeah.
But,
Stereotypically, guys.
right? Like
usually less expensive than the girly thing.
well, yeah. Like, and I hated
for
wearing
real.
dresses, and like
Yeah.
I out here in Texas, I mean, it's just so like, I love like, how like girly I get, sundresses and
yeah.
like just, cause in LA, everyone dresses like a dude, but yeah, here, it just, I like, the girly representation. I just don't like, I haven't really found my groove with it, if that makes sense.
Yeah. I feel like the Goldilocks of this is like, I feel pretty split down the middle. Like I definitely think like I've had probably more just like cherished and like really in the depth stuff with like my female friendships, but I've always pretty split, like made friends with men and women pretty equally. But I also kind of split it. It's like I grew up very like tomboy up until I got in high school, and then
Yeah.
I was kinda, like it's like I just randomly decided to do like cheerleading in high school after I'd been
wow.
a tomboy forever.
Yeah.
But then I still like it was like I would do that, and it's like if I wasn't at the games, I was out like I grew up like way out in the country, and it's like I was out on like the farms with all my farm boyfriends, like on their 4-wheelers and like shit like that. So it's like I feel like I always had a little bit of a blend in
Yeah,
it.
pretty much all of my girlfriends are like tomboys as
Yeah.
well.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Like, I don't know. I just, it's easier to relate, I guess, to that.
It
But
is.
all of us clean up well.
Yeah.
It's just
Yeah.
like my first choice when I get up is not to wear like a dress or a skirt. Although I just, I just compromised. I bought an Adidas skirt.
Love. Is it a tennis skirt?
It's like not tennis. It's like a mini
Ooh,
skirt. It's really cute. I
Yeah.
can't wait
Tennis
to wear it.
skirts changed my life when it
Yeah.
came to
Yeah.
this. I love a tennis
Well,
skirt.
because like I went to private school, Flex, growing up, and they made us wear those like private school, like the pleated skirts that are like flannel cover or whatever. So that's just like what it reminds me of.
Maybe that's like, were you always in private school? Like,
yeah,
maybe that's part of what made you want to like dress more not.
Well,
really.
yeah, because like
you were like forced to do that.
Yeah, I mean, even then, I was still like the pants and the shorts, girl. But yeah, vibes.
That's cool.
One time, again, when I worked at Hooters, this guy, he always liked to talk to me because he said that I remind him of his son, and his son is dead.
Didn't your dad tell you once that you were basically the closer to having a son or something?
Yeah. He thinks that's so funny to fucking say to me.
Multiple times people have come up to me and been like, you remind me of my boy cousin.
It's like, whoa. I'm always like, okay.
Yeah.
Yeah.
In what way?
I had a lot of guy friends.
What do you mean by that?
I've gotten a lot of "you're one of the boys" comments. I was literally a groomswoman in somebody's wedding.
I love that.
It was awesome, honestly.
Yeah.
The bachelor party, way more fun than any bachelorette party I've ever been to. I'm not gonna lie. And I love women. Like, I love hanging out with my girlfriends. But I was like, they just like, it was so chill and like chaos, like chill as far as like how they play. Like, we literally got there and like our whole Airbnb canceled as we all got in. And I was just like, for the whole thing. Like, we were in Chicago, St. Patrick's Day weekend. Like, you know how busy that is there. And like, I was just thinking about like the meltdown this like a bride or something would have had. And we were like just sitting in this bar at 8 a.m. and they were like, I guess we'll start drinking and figure it out. And I was just like, do you guys need me to call somebody? And they're like, like, and I was like, 4 hours went by before one of them was like, well, I guess we'll flick something up. And they just like walked to the next block and we're in a hotel and they're like, we'll just get a couple rooms, I guess. Like,
very
I was
chill.
They didn't give a fuck. Like, I was just like,
Something surprising about me is I actually do not think I would enjoy a bachelorette party.
I love a bachelorette party so here's the thing, a bachelorette party, if like if like it was like one of us, we all like share a lot of our friends or like have commonality friends. It's the worst to be like at a bachelorette party for a girl where it's like you're really only friends with the bride and you go and it's like then you find out all her friends fucking sucks.
And I'm like,
like
what?
There needs to be like a gay guy in there.
Yeah.
There needs to be some testosterone.
The thing is, and it's like, just factually, as someone who grew up doing competitive cheerleading, as someone who grew up doing softball, all the girl competitive sports, you cannot put 9 girls in a room for more than 42 hours and there not be just an uproar of an argument.
Yeah. I got really lucky. I like did a melding and I was kind of nervous about that. And it was mostly fine. There was still like one tiny awkward dynamic, I feel like there, but like not till like the very last day to your point, which we stayed, I think 4 or 5 days. So we were probably reaching that brink. But I did like 2 years ago, I went to Denver for my birthday and I had brought like my, like at the time, like 6 of my best friends, but we like, they're all like, a couple of them had met through me, but it's like a lot of my friends still like live all over the country and stuff. And I like just meshed these people together that really had never spent time as a group. And I was just like, we'll just see.
Yeah.
And I was like so scared of exactly that. It went pretty okay, but
when I used to work at this like place in Townsend. It was like this bistro that mini cabins. It was like very expensive to stay there. And I remember there was like a wedding and like they would have a bartender that would stay in the suite while the bridesmaids were getting ready, making them cocktails, mimosas, whatever. And there was like a few crazy things that happened. But the craziest one, all these girls are getting ready. And there's one girl that's like so like about the bride, like just like fixing, like doing her hair, like being like kind of like too much. That's like when a friend is like that to me, like I'm always like, I don't know, it's overwhelming.
It feels like competitive in a way, but it's like you don't have anything to prove.
Yeah.
You're there.
So it was just like, I felt so weird about it. I was like, whatever. And then that girl was like getting progressively drunk. I think I made like 6 mimosas and she had 4. And it was like one of those where it's like, I'm like looking at the wedding planner and like they're going and getting ready. And like the bride is like, just kind of, in my head, I was like, because I didn't really know anything about I thought maybe it was like the groom's sister or something, where it's like someone the groom had to have on her bridal party. Yeah. Turns out it's her like best friend since they were like, they met their freshman year of college at orientation group. Found out her and her husband had like, they met also their freshman year. When her and her husband first started talking, she was sleeping with him for months behind her back.
Oh, wow.
And decided to like confess that to her the night before.
No.
Yeah.
Oh my God.
I just read, we were just talking about this Reddit thread thing that we want to start doing, but I can't remember if that's where I saw it.
Oh, have you ever gone through the "Am I the asshole"? On
Yeah,
Reddit?
I follow it on like Twitter. It always pops up.
There's something. It was something like that. I can't remember. There was someone sharing wedding stories. Maybe it was Shannon's thing. She was talking about it. I think like she used to have like people submit stuff to her.
Oh,
podcast.
I don't know. I sent you that one.
Yeah. But there was one the other day that there was this girl that like she got all the way. I guess the morning of her wedding, she like found out that her like guy that she's about to marry was fucking her maid of honor, and like
actively.
Yeah, like and so she like, but she like went through the whole thing and like she found out that morning, and instead of calling it off, she like went all the way down there and then at the altar stood up and was like, by the way, we're not getting married because these two are fucking.
Oh my
and to
God.
the whole like everyone there. And I was like, honestly, that's a fucking move. And then she just like walked out.
I wish she would have posted that on YouTube.
I know. I wish I could
viral.
remember. I think it was somebody submitted it to
This
Shannon.
wedding planner that I was talking to once, I was like, what's the craziest story? And it was like, men really ain't shit. But it was like this guy, they're at the rehearsal dinner, and the bridesmaid was joking around like to the bride, and she was kind of joking too. His ex-girlfriend from college texts him and is like, congratulations, I'm so happy for you, blah, blah, blah. And so they're like laughing about it, and they're like, that's so crazy. Like, she's so crazy for that. Anyway, they're getting ready to go to the rehearsal dinner. No one can find him. They can't find him anywhere. So he has an Apple AirTag on his keys because he left his phone. But his AirTag is on his keys in case he loses them. He went and drove all the way to Cincinnati
to meet up with her
and like say goodbyes.
Damn.
And
not the time.
Not the time.
And then tried to drive back for the wedding the next day.
That's crazy.
And they still had the wedding.
Damn. That's wild. I could not, like, I don't know.
Couldn't FaceTime. You got to drive to Cincinnati.
Also, if that's like what you're thinking about in that crunch time, maybe don't get married.
Maybe don't get married. This one says, am I the asshole for calling? I sent it to Megan. I thought it was so funny. Am I the asshole for calling off my wedding because my fiance wants to invite guys she had a gangbang with?
That was so funny. You sent me that one.
And the thing is, I do think he's the asshole.
Yeah, that's insane.
She went to college with him. And one of them was her childhood friend, like neighbor.
Yeah, so what? You had one gangbang.
You've one gangbang.
God forbid.
And you just can't never talk
a
to
woman
them again.
multitask.
In fact, if I have a gangbang and none of them talk to me again,
that's mortifying.
What is a
honestly.
gangbang if not an extra seat at the wedding?
Yeah, for sure.
What is a gangbang if not an already set up groomsman for my husband? You're welcome.
Yeah.
100%.
Sit them all at the same table too.
Yeah. I think it'd be different
funny.
if she was like on 6th Street and like vibing with 5 guys, and then they're like, "You want to go
they
back
were
up?"
friends of hers, like
childhood
that
friends.
could happen. That has happened to everyone.
Who hasn't gangbanged their childhood friend?
Exactly.
And now they just can't come to my wedding. I've known them for 20 years.
Normalize gangbang lasting relationships.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Normalize men being more secure in themselves.
Yeah. No, there's a lot of unhinged things coming from insecure men, but I feel like you are very lucky and you have what seems like a very nice, healthy relationship.
Yeah, 6 years.
6 years
in July.
Yeah. One of my first memories of when you guys first like came into the Austin scene and stuff, I was pretty like still fairly new here as well. And I was sitting in the green room with y'all and we were talking and like we were smoking and just chilling. And I sat and talked to Matt for so long about like just him and like your borderline stuff and like how like he handled that when you guys got together and like all this stuff. And I tell people about it all the time.
Aww.
Like it was such a like, especially for someone who like I have always carried with like, and I think if you have any kind of like mental disorder or some kind of like trauma thing where it's like you're like, this is going to be the thing that like keeps everyone away, or like no one's going to want to work this hard and stuff like that. And like it was so reassuring, like and healing for me to like hear that there's like, okay, they might be hard to find, but there's men who are like going to put that effort in. And I've like, it like makes me like emotional even talking. Like every time I see you guys, I like think about that. And
That's
it's
so sweet.
So cute to me.
Yeah, I'm very lucky. Because in the past I've dated guys. I remember when I first got the diagnosis, and like when you first get diagnosed with something, because like I was diagnosed with bipolar when I was 12, and I was like medicated for that. I
remembered you saying something about
and
bipolar.
Like it turns out I have borderline. So like when you find out that you have borderline and you realize like, all that and it starts to click like, oh, this is why this happened and this is where it stems from. I mean, it's any kind of mental diagnosis can be really taxing and just like an emotional process. And I remember when I first got the diagnosis, I was dating this guy at the time, and I don't think I we were newly dating, and like he knew I had mental health issues, but like I don't think I told him right away that it was borderline because I was still learning about it myself. And I remember we went and got like lunch with one of his cousins, and she was like, "Oh, I have borderline." And I was like, "Oh, I like got diagnosed with that too." And he felt so betrayed that I hadn't like come right. I mean, we had only been dating for a few months, but like that, and like he made me feel guilty and bad. And there goes the rejection and abandonment all over again, and making me feel like awful. And so I learned from that point forward, because it's like, you know, I have a tweet that I was like, a first date should be something romantic, like going over each other's mental health history. But it's almost like with Matt, when we first started hanging out, like we stayed up all night talking, and I was just like, just so you know, like I have a joke about how I told him I had borderline on our first date, and like he took it upon himself to learn everything about it. And just like, he almost knows more about it than I do, because it's hard to like, you know, it's hard for me to read about because it gets such a bad rap. It's actually one of the like most, it's like therapists don't want to treat this one out of all the personality disorders. But there are good therapists that will, but it's just like there's such a negative stereotype with people with borderline. Anytime like I'll post a joke or something about it, I'll get a slew of like mainly men who are like, "Oh, I was married to someone who had borderline and like run," or like, you know, "It was the worst experience I've ever had. They ruined my life." Like, you know, and I don't think most people know this, but like borderline can go into remission if you go through this certain type of talk therapy and of course get on the meds or whatever. Like you can learn how to like regulate your emotions on your own with like the tools and stuff.
Right. I feel like there's also a trend of people just saying they have it.
Everyone says
well, it's
they
the
have
same thing with like
everything.
autism and ADHD. And like people will comment sometimes like, "You don't have it." And it's like, yes, I do. Like I went to a doctor. I know that I have this. It makes perfect sense. And, you know, I'm on meds now. I wasn't on meds when I first got here, and like moving to a new state was really difficult for me at first. And and that it's so important when you have, especially like borderline, to have like a good, strong support system of people who know who you are and know that like you're not the diagnosis. Like this is just, you know, like just something that you struggle with, but it's not your identity. You know,
for sure.
So that's how I'm with like OCD, where it's like people are like, "Oh, sorry, like everything has to like be super organized in my house because I'm so OCD." Like when people are like, what they think is OCD.
Oh, Kat Swanter has a joke about that.
Whereas it's like it's not. Like,
she was like, "Oh, you have that kind?" Like,
and it's like, because I know for like, there's one girl that I follow. She always like, definitely self-diagnosed herself. Like she just does these like things that are just not okay to do. And she's like has started using BPD. And there's another girl I grew up with that she advocates a lot for it. She grew up in foster care, like very like strict advocacy for BPD. Her name's Haley. She's the shit. She's awesome. But she's like, hey, like a lot of us struggle. The biggest thing with advocating is struggling with like these huge negative stereotypes, these things that people just throw around. And when you throw around such like a diagnosis like that to justify behavior that has nothing to do with that diagnosis, you're feeding into something that we're fighting every day to advocate for. And
Chris DiStefano has like a really funny joke that I saw today about autism, how everyone's like, "Oh, I'm autistic." He's like, "You better be wearing a helmet and trying to bite me." Like that is, you know what I mean? Like it's like you're 40 or whatever. It was such a
like,
funny quick
a lot
bit.
of things can be like a spectrum. I get that, but it's like it's similar. Like it's like somebody will just like get bored at work one time and be like, "Yeah, I have ADHD." It's like the same thing. I'm like, this is like, it's so frustrating. And I don't know. It is.
Sometimes people like, I'm autistic, and I'm like, you're actually just me.
No, well, I mean, when I grew up, like I got diagnosed with ADHD when I was 5 and I was taking Ritalin at 5, very young. It wasn't like that was not a common thing. There was only like one or two of us.
In Tennessee, they told like when I got diagnosed with ADHD, OCD. OCD was later, but ADHD, and they're like, but she can't be on medicine until she's 10 in Tennessee.
Well, there's also, I'm curious with like that for you too, is like, I know with me and a lot of other things, a lot of stuff ends up like a lot of them overlap symptoms. So it's like stuff is like ADHD, like a lot of things that are presenting as ADHD might have been the borderline or like things like that. That's like what, because I was misdiagnosed with a million things because they still don't like, I think they're working on it, but they still don't like clinically recognize CPTSD. So like my therapist was like, "This is your diagnosis." Like we're studying it now, but it's like not a formal thing they do.
Well, also like, especially with borderline, there's no like medication that you can take. You have to like almost like manage like the symptom or treat the symptoms. However, like if you have borderline and you need meds, insurance won't cover it. So you almost have to get diagnosed with bipolar because insurance will recognize that and then they'll able to cover your insurance. It's like so fucked up.
Yeah.
I think the other thing we were talking about earlier is like women endure so much mental shit, so much physical shit.
Yeah.
And it's the thing when it comes to autism, ADHD, all these things, is that we're constantly wanting to mask.
Yeah.
It's like
Masking
because you
is a
don't
thing.
want anyone to think that you're doing anything
Well, that's
wrong.
why it gets way, like you said, underdiagnosed in women because of the masking.
Yes, we're like wanting to conform.
And that's why there's such late diagnosis for women when they enter adulthood of finding out that they're this or this.
That was mine.
But yeah, I mean, honestly, I feel like everyone has something. It's like, you know, especially like I'm a millennial. I don't know what, are you guys Gen Z?
I'm 33. So
Okay.
millennial.
Yeah. So it's like, you know, when I was born, we still didn't have like the internet or tablets. That came later. Like Facebook came out when I was in college.
Yeah.
And but you know, it's so easy to become overstimulated and antisocial when you grow up with like a tablet in your face all the time, and just you know, it's interesting how like, you know, it's affecting all generations and whatnot. But definitely, you know, I definitely had something as a kid. You know, it was very you know, noticeable. But you know,
I feel like it sucks that like you had that experience with like, you know, the guy that like freaked out about that and all that stuff. But it's almost like, you know, all those things end up being like these hindsight blessings in disguise because it like changed how you approached things with that. And like what is like with getting into the relationship with Matt and exploring that with him, like bringing it up right away, was that like, I know you like have the joke about it, but like was it really just like from the like get-go he was just like, I'll see how it is, like, and it was fine?
Well, he has a joke about it too. He said night one, she told me she had borderline, and he was like, well, I have a boner, you know, and we'll just put 2 and 2 together. But yeah, I think it didn't scare him away, but also he had dated, you know, he's dated comics before me, and, you know, they had their mental health struggles. And Matt is just a very empathetic, sympathetic person.
Yeah.
He grew up with sisters, and, you know, he is just like a special kind of guy, especially as like a male comic. And I don't know. I think like it just didn't scare him away enough. Like he also, you know, liked me enough to like kind of still explore whatever feelings were there. Yeah. So, yeah, I guess, any guy out there who still is with their girlfriend or wife and, you know, decided to continue on in a relationship despite their mental health struggles is just like such a beautiful thing. Yeah. You know,
is there something that like being in this relationship as someone who's like managing that disorder and someone who's worked with you, is there like something that you wished like more people understood about that? Like if you were like giving that kind of advice to people that are like dating and like in that kind of experience or something, like you feel like?
I mean, one, obviously I am a big advocate for like really work on yourself before you get into a relationship with someone else. But also, you know, having someone like Matt in my life kind of forced me to get the help that I need, because he was able, like, you know, he's like a mirror. You know, when you get into these relationships, it triggers a lot of those like childhood trauma that wouldn't normally be challenged if you weren't so close to someone. Yeah. And so I think that as long as you're putting in the effort to become better and work on yourself, you know, and there's like a relationship opportunity there. Obviously, like, you know, I think it's still worth exploring as long as you are committed to still working on yourself. It's also much easier to be in a relationship with someone else when you kind of have that side, like your inner child healed and, you know, you're dealing with your trauma, because especially like, you know, when you date someone, like I said, it really does trigger your triggers. And that's that could be a good thing, because, you know, how else are you going to address it if you're not aware of what's triggering you? You know? So yeah, I mean, just, you know, as long as people, it's good to, you know, be with someone when when they're dedicated to still working on themselves and being better.
Have you always been like a long-term relationship girly?
Yeah, well, I mean, another thing with borderline, and I guess it didn't make sense till I was older, is like I've been in relationships since I was 15.
Yeah.
Like long term, you know, like 2 years or whatever. But Matt's the first relationship, the longest relationship I've ever been in, because usually after like 2 years we break up, you know. And you know, even 2 years is not that long, but like that's when you start to see things, you know.
Yeah.
So yeah, I've always just loved monogamy and having one person. I guess I went through a promiscuous phase when I was younger, but I never really slept around. Like it would be like friends or people that I knew. But as I grew older, I realized like that isn't for me. I actually don't like feeling that way.
Yeah.
We talk about that
Yeah.
for me, where it's like my brain can't do it.
Yeah.
Yeah, and I have like one thing I learned as I got older was that the value of not being physical with someone right away.
Yeah.
That's something that
We've
I
been
think
talking about that
like
lately.
it's if you can learn that lesson from a young age, it really is valuable, because you know, when you give yourself up very easily, men, you know, won't respect you. And again, this is not all the case every time, but I've just noticed that like men, you know, they're emotional, like we are emotional. So like right up front, you know, crushes, this, that.
Yeah.
Men are more like a physical thing, and then the emotional comes later.
Yeah.
And that's really why it's so important to like the dating phase, the courtship, which a lot of the internet has kind of erased.
Yeah.
Like with these dating apps, you literally know everything about this person on a screen, and it's like they're just a profile.
Yeah.
Like,
I'm 4 months clean off Hinge.
oh,
Shit.
congratulations.
Yeah.
But you know, every guy, I've never been on a dating app. Every guy I've met has been in person.
Yeah. Love that.
And I noticed that like I will get into these committed relationships because I hold off on the physical.
Yeah.
And just really develop like a friendship or good solid foundation before the physical
I
comes
really
in.
like that perspective on it too, because it's like I always say on here too, I was like, I'm never slut shaming anyone, and like I've had but it's so interesting to like when you start thinking about that, it's like not, if you even like consider it not from a perspective of like, oh, they won't respect you, but it's like I like to be like, what is making me do this? Like when you were talking about like the attachment side of that, is like and that's what we've talked about a lot, is it just like it fucks your brain up. But like I had like a very large, especially like in my early 20s, and I mean I dip in and out of it depending on what I'm going through, but like promiscuous phase in like college and stuff. But it was that like trauma seeking validation. It was like this way to be like, oh, this makes
how I get close.
This is how they
with
make me
them.
like them, and like all these things. But then I found out, and like we've been talking about this for me, is I was like, I started having this struggle though, when I would try to like do dating and be like, I'm gonna hold off on that. I could not feel attached to that person without that. But then it's like, if I have that, then I'm constantly like, is that all they want? And it's like, it was this battle in my head.
Well, it's such a great filter too, because if a guy is still willing to get to know you without the physical part, he really likes you. He's interested in you. And like, if he only is there for the physical thing, it's like, bye-bye. But also, to your point, like I'm never slut shaming. I think, you know, having your like I guess like being proud of your sexuality or whatever it is, like all good for you. And like I think women, you know, if that's what you want to do, more power to you. Love that. But I have noticed, you know, when women struggle with getting into these committed relationships, I'm always like, well, you know, are you giving away the physical too quickly? Because I get, you know, some people are like, I don't want to play games. It's like, no, it's not a game, but dating is kind of a game.
It is a little bit of a game,
You know, there's levels to this shit. Like it's like, you know, you have to like go through the courtship process.
Especially somewhere like Austin, where there's constantly options. They have so many things. So especially it's like men treat it like a game, because like they don't get emotionally attached. And like we've talked about Austin being so emotionally bankrupt.
Thank God you had someone when you got here.
Sex isn't like, it's not like, for them it's not this like emotional connection. But sometimes I feel like I might be like asexual, and then I'm always just like get to use the whole like, well, sorry, I'm a woman of God, so you're gonna take me to Cracker Barrel first.
Well, have you ever noticed though too, like you'll see like your guy friends, or you know, someone like any guys that you know, and they're just like, it almost takes the right woman for them to kind of like and that's because, you know, there is someone out there that made them see it differently. Like that was just the person maybe they were supposed to be
it's
with,
the right
or,
woman for them. Yeah.
or like whatever. And I really think like there sometimes it does take someone to kind of change who you are, your outlook.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
Yeah.
So
I learned this lesson over and over again, honestly, but has finally like sunk in over this last like year thing that I went through pretty much was like when people like when men are like being like, I'm not ready for a relationship and all that stuff, I'm like, it's an excuse and they're leaving out the with you part.
Yeah.
And like, but then also to understand that, but then not take that as like a personal attack on yourself. Like it's like they don't want to be in a relationship with me, but that actually, I mean, sometimes it can, but it's like that actually might not mean anything about me. It's just like I'm not the right person for them.
that's where rejection is protection in those situations.
Yes. And so that's like such a powerful way to like think about that as like, oh, you weren't the right woman, but not because you're like not right for anyone. Like that just wasn't the person you were right for. And I think that's like what's powerful. And like that's what when we talk about all the sex stuff and everything, it's always just like being like, yeah, I'm not like pro or con, like however you're doing. I'm pro like what's healthiest for you. And that's like what we talk about a lot is I'm like, for me, it's like if I am being like sluttier or whatever, I'm like a lot of times that's not like it's for me not usually been from like an empowering place. Like if I do have friends and women who are like that and they can separate or they can just be like, this makes me feel good. And like, but I think that is far and few between. Like most of us, it's coming from a place of like, that's not actually what we want to be happening. And so I think like being able to like recognize that with yourself and then navigate dating that way is so useful. Because that's tough to do. I think it's like hard to be honest with yourself about that because like I said, we all deep down just want somebody to like accept and love you. And so it's like, oh, if this is what they want.
I don't do vulnerability real good. So it's like like one night stands, stuff like that, I will like immediately feel sick about because I'm like, oh God. Yeah.
I feel that. This has been awesome. We're about out of time, so I want to wrap up here. I have kind of I have a multiple way you can answer this, I guess. So we have a parting question, but I know since you have been a little bit longer of like a longer term relationship girly, if you don't have a good answer for this, I have a backup. So normally at the end, we ask all of our guests, this is Responsibly Unhinged. So we ask everybody like what the most unhinged thing they've done in the name of like love or lust, like the pursuit. But if you don't have one,
oh gosh,
you could also give us maybe like the most unhinged DM you've got because you do have a whole Instagram account of DMs.
I'm trying to think
Wolfie
of
DMs, by the way.
What's the most unhinged thing? I'm trying to think.
Like we all have that like embarrassing thing we've done.
I flew all the way to Colorado for a guy that told me when I said, "You're so handsome," he goes, "You too."
Oh no!
I spent $700 on hockey tickets to hopefully run into the guy that I knew was at the game.
Oh God, I don't know if it's like my period brain, but I'm having trouble kind of like coming up with an answer for that. I get it. Well, I don't know if it was like unhinged. Well, I will say something that unhinged happened in our relationship. I was dating this like Brazilian guy. And he was a little bit older than me. And I think he was just like really wanted me to be Brazilian, you know? So he was like, we gotta lay out, we gotta go to the gym. You know, he's very particular about like me having like French manicures. Like he was, you know, really like, he hated that I smoked weed. And now as I'm older, I'm like, oh, that was, you know, he wasn't so bad, but he was extremely controlling you know, that makes sense culturally. And, he had this like picture in his phone saved of this like fitness model. And he shows it to me one day. He's like, this is what you could look like. Yeah.
Oh my God.
I know. And then we broke up in a parking lot outside the gym.
Damn.
So
that happening at the gym is
outside the gym.
Did you break up with him once he showed you that?
Like shortly after that, but I just thought it was like insane that's like that in his mind, like, and I was in like my 20s, you know, I'm like very impressionable at that age and just, you know, so he didn't like my friends. But I remember I brought him home to meet like my family, and my mom's friend was just like visibly sweating because he was like, you know, very good looking or whatever. He just had that effect on women.
Visibly
but yeah,
sweating is so
funny. I just can't with that. Now
that's
that I'm older.
nuts.
Yeah, this is what you could look like.
Yeah.
And
that's crazy.
I was like, I can't do this anymore. And he's like, what? I'm like, cardio.
It's too much. I'm not doing any HIIT workouts.
Yeah.
I love
He's
that.
a good guy. I mean, he wasn't the worst guy I've ever dated.
Just
and
not for you.
He's happily, I think, married now.
Yeah.
And yeah, he had my best intentions at heart.
Yeah.
You know? So
That's what I tell myself about my mom telling me I was fat
If
too.
you were like a Russian gymnastics in 12.
Yeah.
That's like best intentions.
100%. 100%.
You know, I used to be a bodybuilder and you would have been miserable. So,
Really?
yeah. Yeah. It's like my lore.
Wow. I love that for you.
I don't.
Really?
But
No.
thank you so much.
Did you do a lot of the spray tan stuff?
Yep. Yeah. I
love a
competed in
spray tan.
powerlifting for 3 years and then I competed in like the bikini bodybuilding for 3 years.
Wow.
Yeah. And then I started doing comedy and eating and it's way better.
Yeah.
Yeah. No
Different
kidding.
kind of discipline though.
Yeah,
That's like that's such a good quality.
Yeah,
to
it
have.
carries. That's what I always tell everybody. I was like, I wouldn't trade like the mental like resilience I had to have for it, but I would definitely trade the disordered eating.
Yeah,
So,
for sure.
yeah, and
For
body
sure.
dysmorphia. But
Yeah.
it is like that's so crazy. Yeah, if someone said that to me now, I probably would spiral because I'd be like, I did look like that. But I always try to tell people though when like I'm such a fan of people getting healthier. Like when you said it's like his intention was probably good, but I'm like to look like that fitness model thing. I'm like I don't think people understand how like you have no life. Like I did.
And she
I could
probably doesn't
literally
even
do
look like that,
nothing.
too.
Yeah, no.
Yeah.
Like you can hardly do it naturally. You can't maintain it, and if you are, you literally have no life. Like I dated a very bad person for a long time, and like but the grace I always give him, and I was like to be fair. It was probably fucking miserable dating me while I was doing that. It's like you can't do anything. I'm like hormonal as fuck.
Very
I'm
restricting.
starving. Yeah,
Yeah.
it's like you can't do a surprise date for me ever because I'm gonna be like, I don't have my meals. Like,
Yeah. I mean, I've had such like a struggle with I think most women do, but like my body and learning to love my body, and it's I was when I was on ADHD meds when I was a kid, I was very skinny and like my teachers were concerned, but that's because I was on Adderall and I would only eat like cereal. And then obviously I grew up when I was diagnosed with bipolar, I was on lithium and I gained a bunch of weight because it affected my thyroid, and my mom took me to Weight Watchers when I was 12. And then like up until recently I was on birth control and I would like look in the mirror and I'm like, why do I look pregnant? And I realized like, oh, it's because your body's being tricked into thinking that you're pregnant because I couldn't lose like right here.
I'm
I just
about
like
to get the thing out of my arm.
yeah, I got off a while ago.
So I came off a couple months ago and like I'm just starting to love my body again, but I've also like been doing my weights at the gym. I've been walking more here I'm at 38. I'm like at the end of my 30s and I'm just starting to love my body again.
Yeah.
So I don't know. I think, just you got to find what works for you.
Yeah.
And
it's crazy because I quit all of that stuff right before my 30th birthday too. So I do feel like 30s is just like for like I've always heard women talk about that where they're like, that's when you stop like giving a fuck about everyone else and start like giving a fuck about what you actually need to be doing. So it's like taking care of your health because it's like, oh, it feels good. And I'm like worried about this instead of like, oh, I need to look a certain way.
Yeah, I have like a skincare routine now. I try not to be like, oh, I wish I learned this sooner, but I'm just glad like I'm learning it now.
Yeah.
Like, so
yeah, hell yeah,
vibes.
I love that. This has been fun. And you got anything else?
No.
We're about at an hour. All right. Well, thank you so much for joining us. Before we go, do you have anything you want to plug? Anything you have coming up? Let them know where they can find you. We'll put it all in the show notes as well.
Cool. Yeah, I just I have my Instagram at Rachel Wolfson. My dates that I have coming up, Rachel Wolfson Comedy. I'm going to be in Fort Worth, I think in May something, and then I'm in Fort Lauderdale coming up in June. So yeah, just like if anyone wants to come see me at Hyenas Fort Worth.
Hell yeah.
In May, maybe May 24th. I don't know. Don't quote me on that. It's on my website.
Follow her.
But yeah. That would be fun.
Rachel Wolfson Comedy is the website.
Yeah.
Sweet. Awesome.
Slay.
We'll put that
Slay.
all in the show notes. Come see her show. If you come to Austin, she's killing around here and
Thank
she's
you.
on tour. So please come out. But you find her online. Yeah. That's about it. Like, share, subscribe, comment, do all the fun stuff if you enjoyed this episode. And tag another borderline baddie.
Yeah. We out here.
We out here. Thanks, guys.
Thank you.